First contact surprise. The Zenith-class observation vessel Eternal Seeker hung motionless against the backdrop of Earth's moon, its quantum diffraction hull rendering it invisible to conventional detection methods. High Commander Valazin watched the blue planet through the ship's main viewport, her crystalline eyes reflecting the soft glow of the nearby star humans called the Sun. Another primitive civilization, she murmured, more out of habit than actual belief. After all, this was her 1000th first contact assessment mission, and she had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving. Still, the preliminary scans seemed straightforward enough. A Level 3 civilization, barely reaching beyond their own atmosphere, still reliant on chemical propulsion and primitive digital systems. High Commander, her second-in-command, Science Officer Kratal, called out from his station. I'm detecting some unusual patterns in their global communication network. Valazin turned away from the viewport, her interest piqued. Unusual how? The encryption. It's elegant. Far more sophisticated than their apparent technological level would suggest. And there's something else. Kratal's fingers danced across his holographic interface. Their internet traffic contains discussions about extraterrestrial life that are surprisingly accurate. They're describing technologies that they shouldn't even be able to theorize yet. Show me, Valazin ordered, moving to his station. The screens filled with human communications, social media posts, scientific papers, and what appeared to be entertainment media. But hidden within the casual discussions were startlingly accurate descriptions of quantum mechanics, dark energy manipulation, and even theoretical models of faster-than-light travel. This can't be right, Kratal muttered. According to our historical database, they were splitting atoms less than a century ago. Now they're casually discussing quantum entanglement mechanics. Valazin was about to respond when every screen in the command center suddenly went dark. The ship's ambient hum, usually so quiet it was barely noticeable, fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the surprised breathing of the crew. Then, a new image appeared on the main screen, a human face. The being wore what appeared to be a military uniform, though it was unlike any they had seen in their surveillance. Behind the human was what could only be described as a command center, bustling with activity. Greetings, High Commander Valazin of the Eternal Seeker, the human said, speaking perfect galactic standard. I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Initiative. We've been expecting you. The command center of the Eternal Seeker erupted in chaos. Officers rushed to their stations, trying to understand how their systems had been compromised. Kratal was frantically attempting to restore their shields and communication encryption. Please, Admiral Chen said, raising a hand. There's no need for alarm. We've known about your presence since you entered the solar system 3 days ago. Your quantum diffraction technology is impressive, but it has a distinctive gravitational signature that our deep space arrays can detect. Valazin felt her heart skip a beat. It should have been impossible for a Level 3 civilization to detect their ship, let alone penetrate their defenses. How? She managed to ask. The human admiral smiled. We've had practice. You're not the first advanced civilization to study us, though you are the first to maintain such a respectful distance. Others have been less courteous. The implications of this statement sent shivers through Valazin's spine. They hadn't detected any signs of previous contact, yet this human spoke of multiple encounters with advanced civilizations as if discussing the weather. What we find most interesting, Admiral Chen continued, is your assumption that technological progress must follow a linear path. Humanity has learned to be more creative in our development. We may not have mastered faster-than-light travel yet, but we've developed capabilities that even your civilization hasn't conceived of. As if to demonstrate, a holographic display materialized in the center of the Eternal Seeker's command center, technology that should have been impossible given the ship's defensive systems. The display showed a three-dimensional map of Earth's solar system, with countless tiny points of light representing what appeared to be a vast network of sensors and satellites, far more sophisticated than anything they had detected. "We've been watching you watching us," Admiral Chen explained, "and we think it's time for a proper introduction. Would you be interested in discussing a mutual exchange of knowledge? There's so much we could learn from each other." Vala Zin looked around at her crew, seeing the same mixture of shock, fear, and fascination on their faces that she felt herself. In all her years of first contact missions, she had never encountered anything like this. These humans had completely upended every assumption about technological progress and civilization development that her people held dear. "Yes," she found herself saying. "Yes, I believe we would be very interested in such a discussion." Admiral Chen's smile widened. "Excellent. And High Commander, you might want to check your ship's quantum core. We took the liberty of upgrading its efficiency by 23% while we've been talking. Consider it a small demonstration of good faith." As Kratal confirmed the Admiral's claim with a look of pure disbelief, Vala Zin realized that this mission had just become the most important first contact in her people's history. These humans weren't just another civilization to study. They were about to change everything her people thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. The crisis. The orbital meeting chamber aboard the International Space Station Lambda represented everything humanity had become. A hybrid of practical engineering and technological innovation that even Vala Zin's experienced eyes struggled to fully comprehend. Quantum-stabilized gravity plates seamlessly merged with simple mechanical airlocks. Holographic displays floated beside old-fashioned physical buttons and switches. "Your approach to technology is unusual," Vala Zin admitted to Admiral Chen as they observed Earth through the station's observation dome. "You maintain primitive systems alongside advanced ones." "Redundancy," Chen replied, tapping a nearby manual pressure gauge. "Every automated system needs a mechanical backup. It's saved our lives more times than I can count." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert, a harsh, blaring tone that made Vala Zin's sensitive ears ring. The holographic displays throughout the chamber shifted to show a massive astronomical disturbance forming at the edge of the solar system. "Unknown spatial anomaly detected," the station's AI announced. "Gravitational readings exceed normal parameters by factor of 10,000. Kratal, who had been discussing propulsion theory with human scientists nearby, rushed to examine the data. "Impossible," he breathed. "It's a hyperdimensional tear, but the energy readings, they're beyond anything we've ever recorded." The tear in spacetime grew rapidly, its edges distorting the very fabric of reality. Calculations showed it would reach Earth's orbit within hours, and its gravitational forces would be enough to tear the planet apart. "Can your ships generate enough power to create a containment field?" Chen asked, already coordinating with Earth's defense networks. Vala Zin shook her head. "Even if we brought our entire fleet, we couldn't generate enough energy to contain something of this magnitude. The laws of physics simply don't allow for it." "The laws of physics as you understand them," Chen corrected. She turned to her communications officer. "Contact all Guard-IN sites. Initiate Protocol Omega." Around the Earth, massive structures began emerging from what had appeared to be ordinary mountains and ocean floors. Orbital satellites shifted position, revealing previously hidden capabilities. The planet's entire magnetic field started to pulse with artificial precision. "What you're attempting," Kratal started, studying the readings with growing alarm. "It's suicide. You can't possibly hope to contain a hyperdimensional tear with planetary-scale magnetic fields. The energy requirements alone would." He trailed off as new data appeared on his screens. Somehow, the humans were channeling energy through their planet's molten core, using the Earth itself as a power source. The technology was crude by eternal seeker standards, but the scale was breathtaking. "We don't need to contain it," Chen explained, watching as humanity's true defensive capabilities revealed themselves. "We're going to redirect it." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Human scientists worked alongside the Eternal Seeker's crew, combining their different approaches to physics in ways that challenged everything Valazin thought she knew about scientific advancement. Where her people sought elegant, refined solutions, humans seemed to delight in brutal efficiency and raw power. They watched in awe as Earth's magnetic field transformed into a massive deflector array, guided by millions of quantum-linked nodes that the humans had apparently been installing for decades. The hyperdimensional tear approached, its gravitational forces already causing devastating tides on Earth. Energy levels at maximum, a human technician announced. Guardian network fully charged. Now, Chen ordered. The combined power of an entire planet's magnetic field, augmented by technology that borrowed from a dozen different scientific principles, slammed into the approaching tier. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly but surely, the massive distortion began to curve away from Earth. "It's working," Kratal whispered, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "They're actually bending a hyperdimensional tear using magnetic fields, and is that modified weather control technology. Among other things," Chen said with a slight smile. "We've learned that sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. Sometimes you just need to hit the problem hard enough with whatever tools you have available." The tear continued its new trajectory, curving away from Earth in a graceful arc that would eventually take it safely past the solar system. But as the immediate danger passed, Valazin noticed something else in the data. "These energy readings," she said, bringing up a detailed analysis. "The way you're manipulating the magnetic fields, it's creating patterns I've never seen before. Patterns that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of physics." Chen nodded. "We noticed that too. We think it might be a key to something much bigger. Would your scientists be interested in studying it with us? There's clearly still a lot we could learn from each other." Valazin looked at her crew, saw the excitement in their eyes despite their recent brush with destruction. These humans had just casually rewritten several laws of physics that her civilization had thought immutable, and they had done it using a combination of advanced quantum mechanics and what essentially amounted to oversized magnets. "Yes," she said, "I believe we would be very interested indeed. But I have to ask, how did you develop all of this? The Guardian system, the planetary magnetic array, these aren't technologies that develop naturally from your civilization's timeline." Chen's expression turned serious. "Let's just say we had some motivation to get creative with our planetary defenses. Remember those less courteous visitors I mentioned? They left us with some interesting ideas about what might be possible. We just had to figure out how to make it work with what we had available." As the crisis subsided and cleanup efforts began, Valazin found herself repeatedly surprised by human ingenuity. They approached problems with a flexibility of thought that her own people had lost somewhere in their march toward technological perfection. Where the Eternal Seeker's crew saw immutable laws of physics, humans saw suggestions to be worked around. Where her people sought mathematical elegance, humans embraced practical solutions, no matter how inelegant they might appear. The hyperdimensional tear had been a catastrophe that should have destroyed Earth. Instead, it had become another example of humanity's unique approach to survival. They hadn't just survived. They had turned the event into an opportunity for scientific advancement. As she watched humans and her crew working together to study the aftermath, Valazin realized that her mission had evolved far beyond its original purpose. She wasn't just documenting a developing civilization anymore. She was witnessing the emergence of a species that might just redefine what was possible in the galaxy. Understanding the impossible. The research facility, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, should not have existed, at least not according to any reasonable technological progression model. Valazin stood in the main laboratory, watching as human scientists worked alongside her crew, their research methods as contradictory as they were effective. "You have to understand our confusion," Kratal said to Dr. Maya Rodriguez, the facility's lead researcher. "Your species went from splitting atoms to quantum manipulation in less than a century. It took our civilization nearly 1,000 years to make that same leap." Dr. Rodriguez didn't look up from the holographic model she was adjusting, a representation of the hyperdimensional tear's energy patterns. "That's because you developed technology in a logical sequential order," she replied. "We didn't have that luxury." "Explain," Valazin requested, moving closer to study the model. The humans had somehow integrated their crude electromagnetic systems with quantum sensors that rivaled the Eternal Seeker's best equipment. Rodriguez gestured to another scientist, who brought up historical data on a nearby screen. 20 years ago, we had our first confirmed contact with hostile extraterrestrial forces. They didn't announce themselves or try to communicate. They simply started experimenting on isolated human populations. The images that appeared made even Valazin's experienced heart sink. The experiments had been brutal, methodical, and completely without ethical restraint. "These beings," she asked, "what happened to them?" "We learned from them," Rodriguez answered simply. "Not just their technology, but their mistakes. They thought their advanced shielding made them invulnerable. They never expected us to figure out how to use our own atmosphere as a conductor to short-circuit their systems. They thought their quantum communications were undetectable. They didn't realize we could track the gravitational micro-distortions their transmissions created." Kraytal moved from screen to screen, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his horror at the images. "But these solutions, they shouldn't have been possible with your level of technology." "That's because we don't develop technology the way you do." A new voice joined the conversation. Admiral Chen stepped into the laboratory, her uniform now bearing the marks of someone who hadn't slept in days. "We don't wait until we understand everything about a scientific principle before we start using it. We find what works and build from there." She brought up new data, schematics for devices that seemed to defy the laws of physics as the Eternal Seeker's crew understood them. "Take our quantum entanglement communicators. We don't fully understand why they work. We discovered that certain crystalline structures, when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies, could transmit information instantly across any distance. We didn't wait to develop a complete theoretical framework. We just started using them." "But that's incredibly dangerous," Kraytal protested. "Without understanding the underlying principles, you risk catastrophic failures. Which is why we build redundancies into everything," Rodriguez explained. "Multiple backup systems, fail-safes, and emergency protocols. Yes, sometimes things go wrong, but we learn from each failure, adapt, and improve." Valazin watched as human and alien scientists worked together, each bringing their own approach to understanding the universe. Where her people sought perfect understanding before implementation, humans were willing to experiment, fail, and learn from their mistakes. Their technological development wasn't a straight line. It was a web of interconnected discoveries, each breakthrough leading to unexpected applications in other fields. "Show them the Prometheus project," Chen suggested to Rodriguez. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be a massive underground facility. "This is our attempt to recreate the energy manipulation techniques we observed during first contact with hostile species," Rodriguez explained. "We couldn't match their technology exactly, so we found our own way to achieve similar results." The facility housed what looked like a crude version of a quantum reactor, but instead of using traditional containment fields, the humans had developed a system that used the Earth's magnetic field as a natural containment mechanism. It was inelegant, potentially dangerous, and absolutely brilliant in its simplicity. "Your species," Valazin said slowly, "doesn't just think outside the box. You don't even acknowledge that the box exists. Boxes are limiting," Chen replied with a slight smile. "We prefer to think of them as guidelines. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most advanced one. It's the one that works with what you have available." As if to demonstrate her point, a junior scientist rushed into the lab, excitement clear on his face. "Dr. Rodriguez, we've managed to stabilize the quantum fluctuations in the tear energy patterns. We used a modified microwave resonator and some repurposed weather satellites." Kraytal's jaw dropped. "You're using microwave technology to manipulate quantum fields." That's impossible. Rodriguez finished for him. And yet, it works. We've found that quantum fields respond to certain microwave frequencies in ways that our theoretical models can't explain. We don't know why it works, but we're learning how to use it. The implications were staggering. While the Eternal Seekers civilization had spent centuries developing sophisticated quantum manipulation technology, humans had found a crude but effective shortcut using technology that was centuries less advanced. "This is why we're here," Vala Zin said, finally understanding the true purpose of their mission. "Not just to observe your civilization, but to learn from it. Your approach to science and technology, it's revolutionary." Chen nodded. "We've learned that necessity doesn't just drive innovation. It drives innovation in unexpected directions. When you're facing extinction, you can't afford to wait for technology to develop in the right order. You use what you have, you experiment, you fail, and you keep trying until something works." As the day continued, Vala Zin watched her crew's reactions shift from disbelief to fascination. The humans' approach to science was chaotic, dangerous, and incredibly effective. They had turned their entire planet into a laboratory, their every failure into a stepping stone toward success. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, watching humans casually rewrite the laws of physics using technology that shouldn't have worked together, Vala Zin realized that her people had much to learn from these remarkable beings. Their greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their relentless determination to find solutions, regardless of whether those solutions made sense to anyone else. The hunter becomes the hunted. The warning came through Earth's quantum detection grid at 300 hours UTC. A massive fleet had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their energy signatures matching those of the hostile species that had once conducted experiments on humanity. But this time, they hadn't come to study. They had come to conquer. In the Earth Defense Force Command Center, Admiral Chen stood before a holographic display of the approaching armada. Beside her, Vala Zin and Kratal watched with growing concern as the fleet's numbers continued to increase. "They call themselves the Harvesters," Chen explained, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "They see less advanced civilizations as resources to be exploited. 20 years ago, they thought we were easy prey. They learned otherwise. But this fleet," Kratal said, analyzing the data streaming across his display, "it's larger than anything we've ever encountered. Their technology far exceeds even our own. How can you possibly?" He was interrupted by a series of alerts from the quantum detection grid. The Harvester fleet had launched their first wave of attack ships, thousands of vessels accelerating toward Earth. "Initiating Defense Protocol Hydra," Chen announced calmly. "All stations, prepare for contact." Vala Zin expected to see Earth's impressive planetary defenses power up, the massive magnetic arrays, the quantum disruption fields, the gravity manipulation systems. Instead, nothing seemed to happen. The planet remained quiet, apparently defenseless as the enemy approached. "Admiral," she said carefully, "shouldn't we be activating the planetary defense systems?" Chen smiled, but there was a predatory edge to it. "Oh, they're active. They have been since we detected the fleet. We've just learned that sometimes the best defense is to appear defenseless." The Harvester ships entered the outer reaches of Earth's solar system, their formation perfect, their approach methodical. They had clearly studied human defenses from their last encounter and were prepared for anything. Except what actually happened. The first wave of ships suddenly lurched to a stop, their engines flaring uselessly against an invisible force. "Gravitational mines," Chen explained. "We seeded the entire solar system with them years ago. They're actually repurposed satellites that generate localized gravity wells. Crude, but effective." Before the Harvesters could adjust their strategy, the second phase of Earth's defense revealed itself. Thousands of seemingly innocent pieces of space debris, old satellites, rocket stages, and various other objects that had appeared to be space junk, suddenly activated. Each one released a cloud of specialized nanobots that had been waiting dormant for years. The thing about advanced shields, Chen continued as they watched the nanobots swarm the trapped harvester ships, is that they're designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic impacts. They're not very effective against microscopic machines that can slip through their molecular gaps and dismantle them from the inside out. Kratal stared at the tactical display in amazement. You turned your orbital debris field into a weapon. The very waste products of your space program. We turned everything into a weapon, Chen corrected. Those nanobots, they're modified from medical technology we developed to fight cancer. The gravity mines, repurposed from our experiments with artificial gravity. We use what we have. The harvester fleet's perfect formation had dissolved into chaos. Their advanced shields, designed to withstand the most powerful energy weapons, were useless against the primitive but effective tactics humanity had developed. Ships that managed to break free from the gravity mines found themselves caught in carefully planned crossfires from Earth's more conventional defense platforms. But the harvesters hadn't become one of the galaxy's most feared species by giving up easily. Their remaining ships regrouped, adapting their tactics, and launched a second wave of attacks. This time, they were ready for the gravity mines and nanobots. They're learning, Valazin observed. Their shields have been modified to block the nanobots, and they're detecting and avoiding the gravity mines. Of course they are, Chen replied. We counted on it. That's why we have Protocol Hydra Phase 2. She turned to her communications officer. Signal the Lazarus fleet. It's time. Deep within the gas giant Jupiter, something stirred. Hundreds of ships, hidden within the planet's turbulent atmosphere, powered up their engines. These vessels looked nothing like conventional human spacecraft. They were hybrids of stolen harvester technology and human innovation, built in secret over 2 decades. You hid an entire fleet inside Jupiter? Kratal asked incredulously. The pressure alone should have crushed them, which is exactly why it was the perfect hiding place, Chen explained. We adapted the harvester's own shield technology, combined it with our pressure handling experience from deep-sea research, and created ships that could withstand Jupiter's environment. No one thinks to look for a fleet inside a gas giant. The Lazarus fleet emerged from Jupiter's storms like avenging angels, their hybrid technology allowing them to strike at the harvesters in ways their enemies never expected. These ships weren't just copies of harvester technology. They were expressions of humanity's unique approach to warfare, combining stolen advanced technology with simple, brutal effectiveness. Watch this, Chen said with quiet pride as the Lazarus fleet engaged. The human ships were firing what appeared to be primitive nuclear weapons, except these warheads had been modified with quantum entanglement technology. When they detonated, the explosions occurred simultaneously inside and outside the harvester shields, bypassing their defenses completely. Impossible, one of the Eternal Seeker's tactical officers whispered. You can't combine quantum entanglement with nuclear fission. The energies are incompatible. Impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet, Chen replied. We found that if you don't care about efficiency or elegance, you can make a lot of impossible things work. The battle raged for hours, but its outcome was never really in doubt. The harvesters had come expecting to face a primitive species hiding behind stolen technology. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had turned their own advancements against them while developing entirely new ways of waging war. As the last harvester ships retreated or surrendered, Valazin turned to Admiral Chen. You knew they would return. All of this, the hidden fleet, the weaponized debris field, the quantum nuclear weapons, you've been preparing for this day for 20 years. Chen nodded. When they first came, we were nearly helpless, but they made a crucial mistake. They didn't finish us off. They gave humanity time to learn, to adapt, and to prepare. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's turning our vulnerabilities into strengths. Evolution's champions. 1 year after the Harvester invasion, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Conclave hummed with tension. Representatives from 1,000 civilizations had gathered to witness something unprecedented. the admission of a primitive species into their ranks. At the center of the controversy stood Admiral Sarah Chen and High Commander Vala Zinn, their unlikely alliance a symbol of the changes sweeping through known space. "This is highly irregular," Senior Arbiter Xenvox declared, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the hull's crystalline lights. "Humanity has barely achieved stable fusion power. Their primary mode of space travel still relies on chemical propulsion. By our standards, they should be centuries away from consideration." With respect, Arbiter Vala Zinn responded, "I believe we need to reconsider our standards." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the hall, showing Earth's solar system. In the past year alone, humanity has contributed more technological innovations than many advanced civilizations develop in a century. The display shifted to show the quantum-entangled nuclear weapons that had proved so effective against the Harvesters, the gravity manipulation systems that now protected dozens of worlds, and the revolutionary medical nanobots that were already saving lives across the galaxy. "But these advances are chaotic," another council member protested. "Their development pattern defies all known models of civilizational progress. They combine technologies that should be incompatible, create solutions that bypass centuries of careful research. It's dangerous." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "With respect, that chaos is precisely why we deserve our place here. Humanity doesn't just think differently, we evolve differently." She brought up new data, showing how human innovations were already being adapted and improved by other civilizations. "We don't wait for perfect understanding before we act. We experiment, we fail, we adapt, and we overcome. That's not a flaw in our development. It's our greatest strength." The hall erupted in debate, but Chen wasn't finished. "The Harvesters weren't the first advanced species to underestimate us, and they won't be the last. But consider this. Every civilization that has tried to suppress or control humanity has failed, while those who chose to work with us have flourished." She gestured to Vala Zinn and the Eternal Seeker's crew. "Ask our friends what they've learned from studying us. Ask them how many impossible things they've seen humans achieve simply because we didn't know they were supposed to be impossible." Kratal, who had been analyzing data at a nearby console, stepped forward. "In the past year, my research team has had to revise our understanding of quantum mechanics 3 times, gravitational physics twice, and we're still trying to understand how humans manage to create stable microsingularities using modified microwave ovens." A ripple of surprised murmurs swept through the assembly. The creation of microsingularities was considered one of the most advanced technological achievements possible. The fact that humans had managed it with repurposed cooking equipment was both absurd and terrifying. "But that's exactly my point," Chen continued. "We didn't achieve this by following the expected path of technological development. We did it by necessity, by creativity, and by refusing to accept that something was impossible just because it had never been done before." She paused, looking around the vast chamber. "The galaxy is changing. The Harvester invasion proved that the old ways of thinking, the old models of development, aren't enough anymore. You need what humanity brings to the table: our adaptability, our creativity, our willingness to try the impossible." The assembly hall fell silent as her words sank in. Then, from the back of the chamber, a voice spoke up, one of the eldest members of the conclave, a being whose civilization had achieved spaceflight when humans were still learning to make fire. "I have watched countless species rise and fall," the elder said, its crystalline form shimmering with ancient wisdom. "Most follow predictable patterns, climbing the ladder of technological achievement one careful step at a time. But occasionally, very occasionally, we encounter a species that forces us to reconsider everything we think we know about evolution and progress." The elder floated forward, its own displays showing data from Earth's history. "Look at how they've developed, not in a straight line, but in great leaps and bounds. They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. They developed atomic power and digital computers almost simultaneously. They turned their greatest disasters into opportunities for growth. That's because humans don't just adapt to their environment. Valazin added, they adapt their environment to themselves. And when that's not enough, they adapt themselves to face new challenges. The elder nodded, its crystalline form pulsing with approval. Humanity represents something we haven't seen in a million years, a species that evolves not just physically or technologically, but cognitively. They don't just solve problems, they revolutionize how problems can be solved. The chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time the tone was different. There was still fear, still uncertainty, but there was also excitement, curiosity, and hope. As the conclave moved to vote on Earth's admission, Admiral Chen turned to Valazin. You know this is just the beginning, right? Everything we've done so far, the quantum weapons, the gravity manipulation, the nanotechnology. It's just scratching the surface of what's possible. Valazin smiled, remembering how far they'd come from that first contact, when she thought she was studying a primitive civilization. That's what makes your species so remarkable. For humans, everything is just the beginning. There is no endpoint, no final achievement. There's only the next challenge, the next impossible thing to make possible. The vote was unanimous. Earth would join the Galactic Conclave, not as a junior member to be guided and developed, but as a full partner whose unique approach to progress could help reshape the galaxy's future. As celebrations broke out across Earth and congratulations poured in from 1,000 worlds, Chen's words echoed through the chamber. Humanity doesn't just adapt to face the impossible, we redefine what's possible. And we're just getting started.